Today is on job interview confidence. This is not the first time I've spoken about this. I actually shot a video last year, the year before, called Job Interview Confidence. It's got a tagline with pro tips in it. And I covered, as you get into the interview and you look at the different phases of the job interview, when you get a chance to describe yourself, walk them through your resume, or tell me about yourself, kind of the early warm-up stage where you can control your story. And then I move into the body, the major body, where they're asking you questions, usually the popular job interview questions, and that you're fielding lots of questions that you probably anticipate. And then when you get to close with your questions, and I talked about how to be confident at all three of those stages, but let's be honest, it's a lot easier to be confident when you've prepared, when you know what you're speaking about, when you're describing stories that have actually occurred in your life. It's a matter of just remembering them and sharing them cleanly. That's a lot easier, wouldn't you say? So where does that leave us right now? What does that leave us to talk about? Well, when are we the most exposed? When are we at the greatest risk of feeling not confident? When they ask us something where we don't know the answer, or perhaps we don't really have the experience. So that's what I want to focus on today, and that's what's going to be the lion's share of the discussion, because I think this is where you have the greatest likelihood of tripping up. Now, before we get into this, I want you to take some comfort in a couple of things. The first thing is, when you do get asked questions that are venturing into areas that you don't have experience or you don't really know the answers to, fact of the matter is, the employer, the job interviewers, they probably should have known that, right? From your resume. You didn't advertise that you had particular skills, or maybe you were trying to be clear that you didn't have that much domain experience in a particular area, an industry, a solution line, a methodology, a process, or whatever, technology, whatever it might be. So they probably should have known that. And they might even know that. And they might just be kind of fishing to see maybe you have some additional stuff that isn't on your resume. But the second thing that you can take comfort in is, I'm going to give you a formula that I want you to practice. I want this to become automatic. And if you do this, I guarantee you will come off more confidently. You will. I promise you. And I got me some note cards today, just a couple of them, but I want to take you through a 5-step process that I want you to use to kind of build your own formula as you get into these areas where you're not really sure. They're asking you about something that you don't have experience with. All right, first thing. And this is a little sneak into the body language discussion, but the first thing about being confident and carrying that air about you has everything to do with your reaction to the question. So reaction is very, very important, that initial how you felt about it. This goes for a lot more than just the interview. It goes for your salary negotiation, your greetings, all that good stuff. And the tone and the voice in which you share the first words out of your mouth, right? Because you're going to react, and they're likely going to see you physically before the sound travels to them. So if you think about this as an entire reaction, that's very, very important. So when they ask you something that you do not know, your natural response needs to be that you are pleased, if not excited, about the fact that they asked you this question. So if they're asking you, have you used this methodology? How much experience do you have in this technology? Have you ever worked in this industry? How would you draw parallels between this and that? Whatever the question is, the most important thing for you to do is smile first. You don't have to glow like a clown. Just smile. Just be positive. Kind of lean in a little. Not all the way across the table, but just kind of lean into it like, this is great. I'm thrilled you asked me. And as a matter of fact, the first words out of my mouth would probably be, you know what, that's a great question. It's interesting that you asked me that. Or something like that, something very positive, that you are welcoming the chance to share what it is you're about to share. So the first thing is, you've got to have a positive reaction, because that is going to carry more weight. And we're going to talk about this in the body language discussion, but if you have ever heard of Albert Morabian's rule of personal conduct, he talks about the 7-38-55 rule. And what that means is that 7% of your communication is coming from your words, 38% is coming from your tone, and 55% is coming from your body language. I think I got that right. But basically, 93% of what the message you're sending to them has nothing to do with the words that you're using. So, and we're going to talk about the mistakes people make, but I want you to file this because it's very important that your reaction is positive. Very, very, very important. Then after you say it's interesting that you asked me that, or it's a great question, or whatever you want to say, or both, then all I want you to do is I want you to use some positive language for a negative thing, right? I've yet to do that. I've yet to experience that. I've yet to gain experience. I've yet to use that technology. I've yet to use that methodology. I've yet to use that cost basis accounting method, whatever it might be. I've yet to do that. You can get this over quickly. Fact of the matter is, you never said you did that. That's in 99% of the cases. And take comfort in knowing that you are sitting there in the interview. And they likely should have known this, or at least whoever screened you knew this. So that's the next thing, or really the first thing that you're going to utter. So that's very important. Then the third part about this is it's more important to talk about who you are, not who you're not, or what you are, not what you're not. And it's always greater to talk about what you know versus what you don't. The conversation is not about the fact that you don't have the experience or you don't know the answer. You need to explain to them what you can do, what you do have experience with, or how you would think through something, or whatever the proper case may be. So I've yet to use that management methodology, but I have used these three others. I've yet to use that technology, but I've used this one or these others just like it. I've never had practical experience on the job using that technology, but in school, I learned and practiced this. I took night classes, whatever it is that you did do. You want to try to draw a parallel between what they asked and the insight that they're looking for, the experience they're looking for with you, with what it is that you have done that you can use some application of, so that you can get up to speed quickly, which is leading me into my next thing. So you want to talk about what you know, not what you don't. This is about what you can do, not what you can't do. You're going to rack up a lot more points, and they're going to feel a lot better about the discussion if you're talking about what you are able to do. So I've yet to do that. I do have some experience in these other methodologies, which I had to learn for the first time. And as a matter of fact, I want you to talk about, and when I experience something that I have not encountered before, these are the steps that I take to get up to speed quickly. So the first time I had to learn a project management methodology, here's what I did. The second time I had to learn a different methodology, here's what I did to get up to speed quicker. That took me half the time to learn the first one, and so on. Or if it's not something specific, use your generic techniques. This is ultimately what I do to get up to speed, to shrink that learning curve. So just to roll with me here. So I've yet to do that. I do have this experience, and whenever I'm faced with learning something along these lines, a new technology, a new methodology, a new application, whatever it is, here's what I do to get up to speed. And then the next thing that I want you to get in there is your overall philosophy about how you feel about not knowing something. So this element is, I've yet to do that. I have used these other applications or these other methodologies. When I was faced with those for the first time, or when I'm faced with something for the first time, here's what I do. And you know what? As a matter of fact, I absolutely love when I encounter things that I haven't encountered before, because then I get to learn something new. That's how we all grow, isn't it? And as a matter of fact, that's one of the things that's very attractive to me about this role in your company, is the fact that I'm going to get to learn a new insert whatever it is here. So you want them to know that you're coming in with an attitude that says, I welcome this. And when you think about it, I personally, no matter how long I've been doing this as a trainer, I literally learn something new every day that I have never encountered before. Every single day. So a lot of you, especially if you're dealing with a role that's varied, has many different facets to it, you're going to be facing things that you haven't faced for the first time frequently. The other thing is the rate at which things change in this world today. There's a high velocity of new things that get introduced on a daily basis that change the way we do things from a platform perspective, from a communications perspective, and all those other things. So this should not be shocking anybody. So I want to make sure that you do that, and you can do all that very quickly and see where they take you. But the point to all of this is your reaction needs to be very positive. You do not dwell on the fact that you don't have that experience. I've yet to do that. That's it. That's all you need to say. Then move into what you do know, what you've learned in the way of other applications, what you've learned in the way of other methodologies, whatever it might be. Then talk about how you get up to speed, and then talk about your philosophy. That is your formula. You don't have anything else to talk about when they've asked you that question that you don't have experience with. So you may as well be confident and fill it in with that formula, because that's going to give them a better indication of who you are, what you're about, and what you bring to the table. Now, I also want to talk about some of the things that I don't want you to do, because these are really going to neutralize that confident tone, the voice, your inflection, the eye contact that you should be giving them, the fact that you were leaning into something. And I kind of wrote these all on one card because I think you get it based on what I just said. I don't want you to look away. I don't want you to cower. I don't want you to lean back. I don't want you to stall. I don't want you to humana. I certainly don't want you fidgeting around when you get nervous. These are sending all the wrong signals. So if you're slouching back, or you're pulling away, or you appear to have been caught off guard, you're starting in a hole. And as a matter of fact, then their mindset goes to, all right, now you're uncomfortable. How are you going to react to this? I still need to know whether you have the experience I just asked you about, right? So it's a deep hole. But if you're up, if your tone is confident, if you get out the fact right away that you don't have that experience, you'll do fine. And then you talk about who you are, not what you're not. Believe me, this works. For those of you that, I guess to cap this all off before we go into questions, for those of you that have the interview intervention book, if you have the interview intervention book, there's a chapter in the book called My Silver Bullet Interview. And it's got the 14 most effective job interview questions that I think you can be asked, in my opinion. So there's the 14 base questions. There is 43 variations of those questions. So each question can be disguised differently. I also cite what the employer is looking for and the very best response. One of those questions in that chapter is, how do you educate yourself? That how do you educate yourself, and the way that's packaged is very similarly to what I just described, because you are ultimately talking about, you've changed their question from, do you have this experience, to how do you educate yourself? You've done that. You've powerfully done that, because that's all you have to talk about in the wake of that question that they likely shouldn't even ask you in the first place, but they did. So I want you to go in there confidently. I want you to be confident. I want you to remember your reaction, your tone, and the formula. And I think you'll do great. All right, hope that helped you.